Welcome, everybody, back here at Bale of Sound. And if you are as nerdy as me, then you will recognize the background behind this wonderful young gentleman here. Because I think 1.5 years ago, we had him and his partner, Damon, on the show already, and we talked about their band, Yesness. Today, we're going to talk about Christian's other band, L1011. So, Kristian Dunn, thanks for joining once again.
Thanks for having me, and thanks for calling out my art as being similar to a Coldplay album cover, which was not intentional.
Yeah, I know. I just had to point that out at some point.
That was good.
Kristian, you know how we always do it here, the plug of the day. You could think of a project that you think deserves more attention. I plug a band that I think deserves more attention. And as I always try to choose something that reminds me a little bit of the music my interview partners are doing, you don't have to do that, but I do. I chose something also, at least in my opinion, a little quirky. Free Trapped Tigers. I think a band that definitely deserves more attention. Also, post rock. Let's put it like that. So,
It's
Kristian,
three trapped tigers is what they're
yeah,
called.
yeah,
Okay.
it's for the guys who like alliteration. Three trapped tigers. So,
Okay.
Kristian, what would you like to plug?
Uh, the one that pops into my head right now is a band here. I live in San Diego, and they're a local band, but not for long. I think they're going to be more national or international soon because they're really good. They're called Band Argument, uh, and they are a three-piece with vocals, but they fit right into our kind of genre, I guess,
Mhm.
whatever that is. Really catchy, some odd time signatures here and there, but you don't even notice them, which is what I like. Really, really good musicians and catchy, and I don't know, they got my attention. And I've become a fan of I'm going to have them open for us when we play in San Diego. So I would encourage everyone to stop listening to me jibber jabber and go listen to Band Argument for a sec.
Well, after this interview, please, after this interview.
After, yeah, really good
Um,
band.
Thank you. So, as usual, if you want to find out which bands we are talking about, just look at the comments and you'll find the links to the Bandcamp there. Kristian, your band L1011 is now releasing their first record after the second longest break in your career. Do you remember
Yeah,
between which albums you had the longest one?
yeah. I think it was between our first record and our second record
Yeah, 4 years
because Tim and
exactly.
I were in another band at the time. We were in a band called the Softlights,
Mhm.
and we just happened to get really busy with that band right after we had done our first tour for L1011. So there was, I think it was a 3 year break between records there. We put out our first one. Was it four? Because I think we put
At
out our
least, at least,
first.
I think it's like 2004 to 2008.
Yeah, I think it was two. We'll have to check, but I think it's 2007 for Every Direction Is North, and 2008 was These Promises Are Being Videotaped. But whatever it was, it was a bummer that we took that break because we had just done our first tour, and really at that time we should have gone back out again, within the next year, and we didn't because we were busy with the soft lights, and there was a lot happening there because we had a really good record deal, and they were flying us around doing fun stuff. So we kind of lost a little momentum, but then we put the next one out, and then we started touring like crazy and just doing laps around the country, in the United States. And that's what really kind of got us going. People seemed to react to what we were doing live more than anything else. Like we didn't get lucky and have a song be this, the theme song to a popular TV show. We didn't have something go viral online. We just had to work hard and just do laps around the country, which eventually kind of paid off. I mean, we're not huge, but we do have fans, and we
We
get to
have a
do
very
this.
loyal following.
Yeah, we're a cult band, I guess people would say.
Yeah. Although we both would discuss the notion whether that is a good or a bad thing. But
Well, it just means you don't sell very many records.
well, yeah. But it also at the same time, doesn't it mean that you sell a steady number of records? Like your regular fan base doesn't all of a sudden collapse by 50%, something like that. You know what I mean?
Right. That's yeah, I would agree with that. And I think I'm very, very pleased to be where we are. It's great.
Yeah, I just looked it up. So L1011, the self-titled record, came out August 2004, and the next one, Every Direction Is North, is 2008. And These Promises Are Being Videotaped are also 2000. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I
this
think that may actually be a mistake. It's if that's
might be
Wikipedia,
maybe
it's probably wrong. But sure. Because
it,
I don't
it
think we put out two records in the same year.
yeah, and it's the same. What is really cool is to see, like, okay, it's between then and the last record, it's always like a year, maybe a two. So it's really exciting to once again have you back after 3 something years. And listening to the new record, I really have a feeling as yes, the guys took their time, but my God, they spent it well. There are
Oh,
so many
thank you.
cool ideas on the new record that I like. And the first thing that I noticed was, I mean, like, it's not as if you were one of those glumcore bands where everything was sad and tortured and stuff like that. But this, to me, is, if I may say so, your most California record ever. It's very bright and sparkly and shiny.
Oh, how interesting. Wow. I don't even know if I know exactly what that means, but I think I like it.
It is positive in a way. I didn't have a
Okay.
feeling as if the record in any way was putting some weight on me. It was always like, okay, there is a lot going on, but it's, as I said, it's very bright. It's very sparkly in a very, very, very positive way. So I like that a lot.
Oh, great. Okay. I like
Um,
that interpretation.
would you say that was your intention?
No, but it also was not my intention, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does.
I was I was not trying to make an overly positive record, nor an overly negative one either. I was just writing what was coming through me at the time. Not to sound corny or anything, but this
Oh.
just I was just trying to write music that moved me and trying to move us to a new place. And that's why there's a real string section on there and real strings, and why most of the tracks actually have two full drum sets happening at the same time, which we had to, we wouldn't be able to do it live, but Tim would have to. This is part of why it took so long, was Tim had to write two drum parts for almost every part of every song that would intertwine with each other and not overpower each other. That was kind of our vision, and that's a lot of work. And I decided to. Normally, I kind of nag him to get things done, and this time I decided to just leave him alone and let him take his time and go at his own pace, which I'm glad I did, because I think he kind of outdid himself on this record.
It's a very cool drumming record. Yes, definitely.
Yeah, if you listen to it with headphones on, you'll hear it almost sounds like there's two drummers playing at the same time, which there are. I mean, they're both Tim, but and then the strings, like scoring the strings, took me a while. It actually came kind of naturally to me, but then we had to sort of how to record them, because my vision was that we would record with a full orchestra, but we can't afford that, so we had to just get a small string section and record them over and over to make it sound like an orchestra. So all the logistics of that, all this ended up taking longer than it normally takes for another L1011 record to come out.
And there is something that you've already basically hinted at. What I always liked about L1011 is that you are a duo, but you're basically ignoring everything, all the guidelines for a duo. There is a limit for a duo. Let's crush it. That's what I always liked. And I think with this one, it is very, very obvious. The soundscapes are broader. The range of the instrument is wider. But then I have a question. How are you going to perform this live?
Well, that was the big question that I wrestled with a while back. And the short answer is I have to come up with new arrangements for these songs, because I can't bring a string section with us on tour. I can't, there's piano on there, real piano, which is new for us. And I'm not going to bring a piano and play it out while I'm playing my bass or anything. So I just have to come up with new arrangements, and I've done it. We've got, at the moment, there's 3 songs that are worked out, and they're this. If you're familiar with the record, you'll hear them say, "Oh, I know this song," but it'll sound a bit different. Instead of there being a string section in this one part, I'm going to do something on the bass that has a cool sound with a bunch of effects that will. It won't sound like a section. I'm not trying to pretend and make my bass sound like a string section, but it'll be this a similar melody that will give a similar effect, or maybe even a different or better one. Which I'm kind of excited about because I know when I go see a band I love, I don't necessarily want to hear every song exactly as it is on the record. I'd like to hear some new versions, and so
because otherwise you could also just listen to the record.
Yeah, why bother going to the show?
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it. I think when Tim and I were sorting out how to do it live, we were kind of looking at each other with eyebrows up, like, "Well, this is pretty good," and we're not. We feel like it's pretty good, but when we get out there in front of people, we'll be like, "Oh God, why did we do this?" But it's feeling pretty good at the moment. We go out on tour in April, which we're recording this in February. I don't know when you're gonna broadcast it.
We're gonna release that as usual the Sunday before release, so that in my mathematically very well untrained record of mind, it's April 10th is the release date, so it should be April 5th when you guys can listen to this. Yes.
Okay, great. So if you're listening to this when it came out. Yeah, so our tour will be, I think the first show is the 23rd of April. So if you're listening to this,
the 9th of May.
Yeah. So we've got time because it's February right now. So we've got time to get the show together, and we're already working on it. Because this is hard. What we do is hopefully we make it look easy, but it's quite hard because there's a lot going on that people don't even know. For example, Tim, my drummer, will be doing things with his feet that people don't see. He's pressing buttons while he's playing the drums, and it's hard because we refuse to have laptops and backing tracks. So it's hard, but when we pull it off, it's great.
It's interesting that you say that because unfortunately Tim can't be here due to some other work. But that was one question that I would have liked to ask him, and that is, what is a mallet cat? Mallet cat part.
Mallet cat.
Yeah. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. A mallet cat, it looks like a xylophone, like a large xylophone.
Yeah.
But each key, if you will, is actually a pad. It's an electronic pad.
Okay.
And there's a good, if you want to see what it looks like, we did a cover of the Post Malone song Better Now, believe it or not. And we made a video for it. It's us playing it live in the studio. And he's playing some melodies on that thing that looks like a giant xylophone, but it's called a mallet cat. And you can use those pads to trigger whatever sounds you want. So in different songs, he was doing different things. So there are electronic pads, essentially.
So for everybody, we will try to get a link to that Post Malone cover, and you can also check it out after interview.
Yeah.
But then I have to ask, why Post Malone?
I can't remember if it was Tim's idea or my idea. I think it might have been Tim's. He said, "Dude, listen to this song. He's like, this is actually a good song." I'm like, I admit my first reaction was Post Malone. Like, I didn't really know much about him, except I figured he's not my cup of tea. And I listened to it. I'm like, that actually is there's a good song in there. For real. I'm not being ironic.
No.
So then I started sorting out the melody and the chords, and I'm like, this actually is a really good song. And we thought, it's very obvious when we cover an old Joy Division song or something. It's like, that's what you would expect us to cover, right?
More or less, yes.
But no one would probably expect us to cover a Post Malone song. So we like subverting expectations and bringing the song to people who maybe wouldn't have heard it, or people who have heard it and who like it but are hearing a new version of it. And we just thought it was a beautiful song, so we just did it.
Is that, I'm like, you doing a Post Malone track is definitely a rather unusual one. I know some years ago you covered Radiohead. Was that for you a more obvious thing?
I think so, yeah. Well, for me, for sure, because they're my favorite band, if I had to pick a favorite band. And it seems like we're in that world. I mean, I'm not comparing us to them and their greatness, but, us covering Radiohead is not
Definitely
so.
more obvious than Post Malone, right?
Yeah, or if we covered Britney Spears or something, I don't know. It's something way out of our genre.
I just imagine you guys doing something like Pink or something. Some
Yeah,
really
I would.
some
I wouldn't
really
be surprised at
cheesy
this point.
pop song.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Never say never, right? Um, or I have to admit, I right now, since Netflix has all those James Bond movies on,
Yeah.
imagining you doing a cover of one of those classic Bond tracks, that would also be like,
Oh,
woohoo!
I could really see that because now, especially with all the strings, because on our new record, there's one song in particular that really, to me, sounds like a, a James Bond theme song or soundtrack or something like that. So I could
You
see
mean
that.
Last Night
Yeah.
in the Kitchen?
Yeah, exactly. You got it. Oh, you've done
Yeah,
your
it's also
homework.
the one which has I would guess the largest space for the strings.
Yeah.
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 Um, yeah. But if you choose a Bond song, please don't choose The Man with a Golden Coat, because I was rewatching that a couple of days ago, and I was thinking to myself, this is probably the shittiest Bond song ever. It's like also because
Ah.
it's one of those last ones where they tried to keep the the name of the film as the name of a song, and it just
Hmm.
doesn't work. The Man
It
with a
didn't work.
Gold, you can't even sing that correct. Like, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I see what you mean, the strings. And that is also something, and I wanted to come back to that. Um, I mean, like, I know that you are a composer also, not only a bass player and stuff like that, but how difficult was it for you to come up with like the parts for the strings? Did you completely do that? Did you ask them to do something? How did that happen?
No, it was really me. And it is, I'm trying to figure out how to say this without sounding conceited, but it came kind of easily because I think I listen to a lot of classical music. I go to a lot of classical music concerts. I studied it in college. I'm very film soundtracks. I'm really always super focused. So I've kind of been doing my research for decades. And then when it came to coming up with the parts, they came pretty quickly and easily. I'm happy to report. And then when I sent off the parts to the string players ahead of time, I told them this is a rough sketch. If you have something that you think would work better here, please, by all means, let's try that. And when it came to the day when we were actually recording, they very in a very complimentary way, even though I don't even know if they meant it that way. They thought my parts were really good. Yeah, they did add some stuff here and there. Like for example, I would have them play a part two or three times, and I'd say, okay, guys, let's do the same part, but harmonize what you just did. And I would just let them go on that. And they were on their own to figure out, okay, do I play a fifth above, a third above, whatever. And they're really good at on the spot kind of sorting out some harmonies to play on top. So there are little things like that where they
Mhm.
took the reins. But mostly, it was 95% what I had written for them. And I was really happy with how it turned out because I'd never really recorded strings like
Mhm.
that before. So I was up in the control room with our producer, and we would isolate the strings as they were recording and listen. We were losing our minds. It sounded like the soundtrack to a Steven Spielberg film or something. I don't know. And it was extremely
Dinosaurs
moving.
running around, slave
Yeah,
ships.
I should have chosen different directors, but
No,
but
it's
it
all
was
good. I would have
very
made a joke
moving.
with nearly every director you would have chosen. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
yeah.
Yeah, but that's true. For example, especially Last Night in the Kitchen, here the strings really work very, very well with the music that you two guys are coming up with, and it sounds. I was thinking of a comparison. It sounded to me as if the soft side of Mogwai was meeting the London Symphony Orchestra.
Oh wow, that's cool. I like that one.
Yeah, I tried to stick in the
I'll
UK.
take it.
So yeah.
I'll take.
um, I guess it was also, I don't want to say self reassuring, but it goes into that direction. Like you said like 95% of the things that we hear is what you came up with. So that must have been, in a way, also some kind of relief to see, okay, I am able to do this, right?
100%. Yes. I didn't know. I didn't. For all I knew, we could go in there and it could have completely failed.
Yeah.
And I would be thinking, "Uh-oh, the record company has already put down a release date. We're supposed to turn this thing in, and we could always change those things, of course. But oh God, what a headache that would have been. But thankfully, we were all high-fiving each other at the end of that session. So,
and I mean, the record once again sounds very L1011-ish, with bits here and there where it's totally new perspective. But something that I always liked about the band is that it always has this certain kind of tongue-in-cheek humor. And I have to ask this: who of you guys is the Zappa fan?
the Zappa fan?
Yeah, Uncanny
Neither.
Valley Girl. Let's stick out the uncanny, and then we have a Zappa song.
Yeah, I know. That's probably no Zappa fan's going to agree with me, but I feel like maybe that's his best record. But no, neither Tim nor I are.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's fine. Neither Tim nor I are particularly Zappa fans. Zappa is one of those artists who I feel like I should like because of the musicianships and the humor and the gibberish kind of humor, which is my thing. But he's just never really done it for me. I don't know why. I respect him for sure. Huge fan of what he was able to accomplish, but I don't find myself listening to his music very often.
I also don't find myself listening to Zappa very often, but when I do, then it's usually occupying me for a week or two. Because,
right.
I mean, like, the guy also had such a vast oeuvre. I mean, like, more than 60 studio albums. I don't know how many live recordings and stuff here and there. Yeah, it's really overwhelming. And when you think about the fact that he didn't even get very old, I mean, like, imagine the guy would have turned 80 or 90. First of all, he would probably still be alive. And second of all, I mean, like, how many records can a man make? And there are moments when I'm very, very happy that it's only 60 plus, because, I mean, imagine where he would have gone. But at the
it's
same
like a
time,
jazz musician.
Yeah. And at the same time, there is something, and here I want to take Zappa as a bridge to something that you said. I'm very, very sure that Zappa nowadays would be one of those self-releasing internet artists. And a few years ago, you yourself said, well, we are living in the golden age of music. Would you still say that? That we are living in the golden age of music, Kristian?
I think what I said, I could be wrong, but I think what I meant by that was we're living in the golden era for musicians. So this is the best time in history to be a musician. I don't know if the music that is getting released is the best that's ever been. I don't know. It's totally subjective. There's a lot of great music out there right now, but you got to go find it because there's just so much music out there that combing through it is extremely difficult. And the mainstream music, for lack of a better term, is maybe the worst mainstream music that has ever been, or among the worst for me. So golden age of music for musicians. I mean, this is a great time to be a musician because we can, if nothing else, just because we can make records ourselves without a record deal, which was not, I'm old enough to remember when that was not possible, and it was extremely frustrating. So musicians, man, you really got to appreciate where we are
now. And now with the advent of AI created music, would you still say that is?
Well, AI music is not good music generally. I mean, well, sometimes it is, but at the moment, who knows where this is all going to go? I think musicians are safe. Well, some musicians are not safe. For example, people who score films or make music for commercials and stuff, there's going to be a lot of loss of jobs there because of AI. But when it comes to original music, AI can only copy what's already been made. They can't come up with anything new. And my job has always, from my perspective, has always been to come up with something new. Even before there was any talk of AI, I always thought that was my job anyway. And now it's really becoming clear that that's what's going to separate the AI generated music from the real musician music, is that we will be innovative and AI won't. And I think also live, of course, people like to gather together to see an artist they love, or to see a comedian they love, or even, see a play, whatever it is, and AI can't touch that. At least not yet. I don't know. Maybe eventually it will be able to, but at the moment we're safe.
Yeah, and at the same time, there is also this, how should I say? Yeah, I think the best term for it is still soul, because I think a
Hmm.
lot that is what's lacking in a lot of AI music, a kind of
Yeah,
soul. There might even be music genres where it is not at first really observable. I mean, like I listen to shitloads of black metal, but I still believe that a good AI prompt can create good black metal music because,
sure.
yeah, um, a good AI could also probably make good math rock. Yeah, but still, there is this one thing that you've just mentioned, the live factor, the also the possibility of getting to know the musician behind it. That is just not what AI does. And
No.
that is something that where, of course, I agree with you. We are in a good age, in a golden age for musicians, definitely.
Yeah.
Um, but at the same time, I also think, and that is something that you've mentioned, we're in a golden age for musicians. However, I still sometimes wonder whether it is possible to make a living out of music nowadays. I think that is more difficult than before. Because, as you said, there is so much music out there.
Yeah, and unfortunately, people aren't buying tickets to shows anymore, at least not like they used to. And that's been a real problem for every level of full-time musicians, from arena acts on down to
Yeah.
club acts. Everybody's getting killed out there.
Yeah.
And I hope that's a trend that's going to turn around. And there was hopefully there was a reason for it, like say the economy or something, and it'll turn around. But no one knows for sure. One of the prevailing theories is that young people just aren't as interested in music because they have so many other entertainment options. That could be it. Um, could be the economy. We just don't know. I mean, we're going out on tour in April, as I mentioned, and we're purposely playing smaller places just to be safe because we're not sure people are going to show up.
Yeah.
I mean, tickets have been on sale for a couple of weeks, and they actually are selling pretty well. They're not great, but definitely not bad. Like I'd call it good. So I think we're going to be okay. But that's really unfortunate. It's ever since the pandemic, our ticket sales dropped off,
Yeah.
by half. And it's that way for almost every artist, except for the occasional artist who's blown, Taylor Swift or whatever. Some huge artist that's going to sell out no matter when they play. But for most working musicians, it's really fallen off.
Yeah. Or also for like bands who just hit the nerve. I'm thinking of a band like Chet Pile. I mean, like I also know that they aren't playing like to clubs or to places of 3,000-4,000 people in the States, but I know that their tours are doing well because they just hit the spot of our time and age. You've
Yeah.
mentioned the tour that you are doing. It's April 23rd till May 9th. For everybody, you can have a look at L1011's website and you can find all the information there. What also struck me, and that is something that I wanted to ask, is I mean, like, I know you're a California band, but is also this lack of certainty a reason why you only go as far east as Denver? Most of the dates are along the West Coast or Idaho,
Oh,
Utah,
this
something like
this
that.
is just the first leg. We'll be doing the rest of the country in the fall.
Okay, cool.
But those shows are being booked right now.
Cool. So for all the East Coast fans, you will be able to see.
Yeah, we'll be in the East Coast and the South and the middle of the country too. We'll be playing Chicago and the surrounding areas from there.
Yeah, I mean, like that is something that just struck me, like I looked at it and I was like, okay, there's a lot of really coastal areas, and as I said, some of the more inward states and
Yeah, we usually break it up. There's certain times of the year that it's better to tour. Like, generally, don't really want to tour in the summer.
yes,
Um, so
because people
we're
are
touring
away.
in the spring, and then if we just kept going, we would end up on the East Coast in the summer, which we wouldn't want. So we take a break and then we go back out in the fall, which is a better time to tour.
Yeah. And you've just mentioned mainstream music. So for everybody, we are recording on February 16th. And I think it's still a good question to ask 8 days after. What did you think about the Bad Bunny halftime show?
I don't think anything because I didn't see it.
I expected that. But for everybody out there, I really liked it. Although I didn't understand a word, but I really liked it. Coming back to your record, we have been talking about Zappa. And I have to ask, I mean, like with the Valley Girl, I can imagine that at some point you noticed, okay, there people might ask us that thing. But did you notice that you basically also have indirect references to the Bad Brains and to Billy Joel?
No. Explain, please.
Well, you have a song called You Against You, and the Bad Brains have I Against I.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's my favorite record by them, too. No, that was not intentional at all, but that's a great record.
And the Billy Joel song should be even clearer. You have So It Goes, and he has And So It Goes.
Oh, it does? Okay, I'm not familiar with that one. But I'll look it up after this this interview. Again, that was not intentional either. But So It Goes reference is a literary reference.
But one thing that is really interesting, and I had to look it up, you have a song that is called Björk's Alarm Clock. Please explain the story behind it, because I heard it and I thought it was hilarious.
Oh, I think it's a good story too. That's why it has lasted this long and ended up being a song title. We were on one of our first tours, and we were playing a show with a band that we didn't fit with. It was a pop punk band, and
totally up your alley.
Yeah, exactly. But that's fine. I actually like it when shows mix genres. I think it's cool. But they were really nice guys. But one of the guys in the band was giving me a hard time afterwards, in a fun way. He was kind of roasting me, but he said, "Yeah, your band, it's not really my cup of tea, but you guys are really good. I mean, really, you sound like Bjork's Alarm Clock." And I just thought that was so freaking funny.
Yeah.
And I wrote it down because I thought it was so funny. And this is how long ago this was. I think this was the MySpace days. So we had a MySpace page, and I think that you could put a quote about your band at that time. And that was our quote for a long time. This Bjork's Alarm Clock. And then with this song, just the sound of it, it has a repetitive, almost mechanical sound to it that could be, yeah. So it seemed like, there we go. That it fits. It fits there, I think. It
definitely fits. I just thought when I read it, I was like, okay, I have to have him tell that story. But then again, that plays into what I said. There is something wholeheartedly funny about L1011. Not in a prankster kind of way, not in a stand-up comedian kind of way, but there is a certain tongue-in-cheekness. That is important for you as a band, right? To have fun in general, and to also have like some droplets of humor somewhere.
Well, it must be because we keep doing it. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious from a fair amount of our song titles that we're goofballs. I mean, if you only listen to our music, you would think, wow, these are really serious guys, But if you were around us in a room, you'd think, wow, these guys are dorks. They're like, we laugh a lot. Tim is really, really funny, and people don't know that.
Well, we don't know, right? He ain't here.
Yeah, he's not here. But when we're on tour, he's like really good at impressions. Like if he had a different self-confidence and a different career path, he could have been a stand-up comic. I really think that he's really, really funny. And so we find ourselves laughing a lot. So we come up with these titles, and we have so many funny titles that we haven't used because they're just not appropriate for the music. Because a lot of the music is actually serious sounding. Yeah. So we can't be too goofball, but it works its way in there.
But let me guess. I mean, like, you are now doing this for 23 years. That is also something that must happen right? The band members have to share a certain sense of humor, otherwise you're not doing that for 2 decades.
I found that somebody pointed this out to me a while ago, and it was really interesting to me that all of my best friends are really, really funny. If somebody's not funny, they don't end up becoming one of my best friends, which I wasn't doing that on purpose or anything, but it's interesting that I gravitate towards people who are funny. And yes, I think for two guys, Tim and me, spending as much time as we do together, I think if we weren't cracking each other up, it would be harder for sure.
And something that I also want to ask, because of those 23 years, this is not a professional relationship, if you know what I mean. This is not, we're doing this because it's our job.
I'd say it is, but
you know what I mean? Let me, maybe I have to reframe this. It is.
Okay.
We've been talking about cult bands, and we've been talking about steady following and fan base. You are not doing this because this is, you're not doing this because this is your job that brings food to the table.
Well, yes and no, because it is my job that brings food to the table, but I would be doing it anyway. So in other words, if I didn't make a living from it, I'd still be doing it, and I would just have a day job. So I can't give you a yes or no answer to that one.
You don't have to.
Both. Yeah.
Although you're in the yesness.
I'm also in yesness. I am in 2 bands.
But getting back to the new record.
That one's not putting food on the table yet.
Yesness, yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah, it's too new.
It's too new, and I'm thinking if I can put my finger on where I see the difference. The new thing is definitely there. It's definitely much newer, of course. I mean, like, first record came out 1.5 years ago when this one comes out. And I would say the L1011 stuff, because of Tim's highly versatile and yet very melodic drumming, is a bit more accessible.
Yeah, that's how I would compare
would you
them
agree?
quickly.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Coming to Nowhere Faster again.
Mm-hmm.
Is there a red thread for you going through the record where you say, like, okay, that is something that we in general wanted to talk about?
I missed the first part of that question. Is there
is there kind of thematic red thread going through the record?
Thematic something. What was this word after thematic? I'm sorry.
Thread. Is there like
red thread?
A narrative that is going through the record?
Oh, okay. Okay. Gotcha. Sorry. I hadn't heard that word before. Yes, I think that you really hear it through the strings. And then we split the album up. Like, people maybe wouldn't notice this, but the side, if you're listening to it on vinyl, side 1 is all done with electric basses and, of course, drums, strings, piano. But side 2 is all done with acoustic basses. Okay. And I still run those basses through effects pedals and stuff, which no one ever does. But I thought, why not? I'm the weirdo who likes to do things differently, so I'm going to put this acoustic bass through effects pedals. And I came up with what I thought were really cool original sounds. So that's how the record is grouped. So it is thematic on the side A and the side B, and I think the feel of it is what really is the theme. It's not like on our record we put out called Tautology, which is a freaking 3-record, triple record. I actually repeat melodies between different songs. So there are melodies running through all 3 records. So that was really thematic and held together in that way, whereas this one is not quite that deep thematically.
I have 2 more questions before we come to the quickfire round at the end.
Okay.
One is that your music is instrumental and thus, of course, very often useful for soundtracks.
Mm-hmm.
What struck me is that your music was used in a trilogy of design soundtracks called Helvetica, Objectified, and Urbanized. I mean, like, being in soundtracks or documentaries itself is one thing. I mean, like, how did it come along that you were in those design documentaries? Why do you,
Gary,
yeah,
oh,
you go on
go ahead.
first. No, you first,
Okay.
and then I ask my second question back.
Okay. Gary Hustwit, who's the director of those, reached out when he was making the first one, which was Helvetica. And
for everybody who might not remember that, Helvetica is a type or typing on your computer. It's type font. Yeah.
Yeah. And it sounds ridiculous to make a documentary about a font, but it's one of the most interesting documentaries I've ever seen. It's fascinating.
I saw tidbits. Yes, it is.
Yeah, it's really cool. So he reached out and he really wanted to use a bunch of L1011 songs that essentially already existed. And I gladly said yes. I knew Gary before he had made those documentaries. We were really just acquaintances, man. And through doing these documentaries, we became friends. So that film was mostly L1011 Records songs that had already been released, plus a couple new ones that hadn't been released yet, but were going to be later. Then when he got to the next films, he did license some L1011 songs, but he also wanted me to score original pieces for those films, which I did. So that was a great relationship and a great run. So I was responsible essentially for the music in that design trilogy, though there are some songs in there by other artists. And then the documentary he did after that, he had Brian Eno score. So I lost out to Brian Eno. I guess I can't complain about that.
You have to reframe that. You paved the way for Brian Eno.
There you go. That's good. I'm glad we had this conversation. Yeah.
But something that struck me, I only had a chance to see little tidbits of the documentaries yet, and I'll try to watch it, especially Helvetica. That is something that I'm also very interested in.
Fascinating.
Is there something where you say, like, okay, there is a certain kind of kindred spirit between your music and a trilogy based on design?
Yeah, I think so. Because he's highlighting people who are innovative in the world of design. And I think it's fair to say that I am innovative. We are innovative in the world of music. I'm not saying we're the most innovative people who have ever lived or anything like that, but we are trying to push music into a slightly different place. That, I'm doing things with bass that nobody else does. That doesn't necessarily mean it's good, but I'm trying. But yet staying within the world of music that people understand. I mean, I could write music that no one has ever written before, but it wouldn't be listenable, right? So we're trying to write music that's actually good and moving, but is also new, but not so new. It's if it gets too new and too challenging, who is going to want to listen to it? I wouldn't.
Well, I think there is music which is very rewarding if you have to work your way into and through it.
Mm-hmm.
However, I agree with you that in nearly all of the cases, there must be at least somewhere, some moment onto which people can dock onto, to which people can latch and hatch onto. Because otherwise, if it's too complicated, if it's too academical, for lack of a better word, then it just doesn't hit. I always take the example of my good friend James Romick, who did a record with Mike Scheid from Yope. And it's a very, 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 very repetitive thing. And it's highly relying on academicals. But it got the great bonus that it's Mike Scheid playing the guitar. I mean, like, the guy is a god on the guitar, so that already made me interested in it. And listening to it, there was something that I could latch onto. But otherwise, I'll also give the example of free jazz. There is a lot of free jazz stuff where I say like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
But let's before we quickfire round, let's end on a fun part. The Dallas Chronicle, and I hadn't heard about that paper before my research. On February 13th, 2014, said something about you and L1011. The guy who wrote it came up with best instrumental bands. And he said that L1011 is the fourth best instrumental band. First of all, can you imagine which three bands he put ahead of you?
No.
You want to know?
Tell me. Yeah, if he's from Dallas, I bet it's going to be Explosions in the Sky, right?
No. I think they weren't even on that list. I know Pelican was sixth.
Okay.
Then there was something that I never heard of no, Pelican was seventh. There was something on the list that I had never heard of was sixth. And what was number 5 behind you? It could have been Explosion of the Sky. They were definitely not ahead of you. Ahead of you were third place Mogwai, second place Godspeed You Black Emperor, and first place Mono from Japan.
Huh.
I mean, like, okay. I know that you like such quirky stuff. I only say Björk's Alarm Clock. But how do you feel if somebody puts you on one of those lists, you know, like best instrumental bands? Never mind the spot, but how do you feel about that? And people say that about you.
That's great. You know, that everybody's opinion is just as valid as everybody else's. Mm-hmm. That guy happens to have a job where he writes for a newspaper. Do newspapers still exist? So it seems as though his opinion is more valid than anybody else's, but it's not. And it's quite clear what that guy likes. If his choices are Mono, Godspeed You Black Emperor, and Mogwai, it's very clear what kind of music he
Crescendo
likes.
Core.
And it's not what a great phrase. And that's cool. That's what he's into. Cool. I might get in trouble for saying this, but those three bands I don't ever listen to them. I did go see Godspeed live recently, and I thought I was going to be bored, and I was blown away. It was so good. Yeah. I stayed till the end, and I bought a T-shirt. I couldn't believe how great they were. I was
one of the best live
really
bands that I've ever seen. Yes.
Oh my God, I was really surprised. But anyway, because if those three bands to me fit together better than we fit with any one of them. I think
exactly.
They have a lot more in common with each other than we do with them. Though we do share a lot of ingredients, I guess I would say. So I'm kind of surprised he put us on the list because there's so many other bands that are in that kind of world that I would think we would have been further down the list. But that's cool. I'll take it. I like it.
What struck me was, as I said, those bands are definitely crescendo core. Maybe with the exception of Mogwai, but with Godspeed and Mono, that's definitely true, and they're very good at what they do. No derogative here. You know, I love Mono, and I think Godspeed are one of the best bands on the planet. I think Mogwai, there is something that you share with Mogwai, and that is a very crude sense of humor. I could tell you one of the stories later, but there is something, you know, that connects Mogwai much more to Godspeed and to Mono than to L1011. What struck me was that you were the only band on that list whose version of, for lack of a better word, post-rock, whose version of post-rock is much warmer. It's never going for the big, shrill crescendo stuff. It's much, much warmer. It's much more embracing. Is that something that you also intentionally do? You know, like provide a warm soundscape, give people some kind of huggy feeling?
I don't know if I would say it's intentional in that sense. I'm just trying to come up with music that moves me. Mm-hmm. And those bands, crescendo, that's so good.
I'm not the first one to say that. I'm also just...
Yeah, you didn't invent it. That's cool. But a lot of our songs are really, they're kind of like pop songs
Yep,
compared
that
to
is a good
those
thing.
guys. Like it's our songs are
Also,
catchy.
lengthwise,
A
for
lot
example, right?
they're short. A lot of them are short. They're dancy. A lot of them. We do have our long songs, the more epic quote unquote songs. And that's I guess that's why when people call us post rock, I don't agree, just because when I think of post rock, I think of those bands you just
Hmm.
mentioned.
Yeah.
And I think of those long crescendo core kind of things. I'm like, that's not what we do. So I don't know why we get lumped in with them. It's fine. I'm not offended if someone says we're post rock. It's fine. But I don't listen to post rock ever. So that's why I don't know where we I don't know how to describe us other than just instrumental rock band. It's like, okay, well, that could be surf music, that could be metal, So I guess post rock is the closest thing. There was, since you're bringing up old reviews, somebody a long time ago called it. What did they say? They said we were Justice meets Tortoise, which I thought was great. Justice, the electronic band.
Yeah.
And then there was another one. It was like Sigur Rós meets Soul Wax or something like that. Like I
That guy was from
prefer
Europe, I bet.
I'm
Because
probably, yeah, because Soul Wax isn't big out here. Um, but those kind of descriptions I think fit better than just post rock. But it's fine. I mean, if people want to call us post rock, that's fine. Whatever.
I can see the soul wax thing actually.
Yeah,
I mean,
when they
like
were doing
apart from the vocals, I can see that. Yeah.
yeah.
Although one also has to say that their oeuvre is very vast, and
Hmm.
from too many DJs, that stuff that they did,
Yeah.
and also a lot of really rocky stuff. Yeah,
Hmm.
a little bit of noisy sometimes, but I can see that. So, Kristian, first of all, thanks for all those insights. But of course, I will not let you go without the quick fire round at the end. You already know that. So, I tried to concentrate on three different categories: duos, trios, and California.
Okay.
You can choose which one we start with: duos, trios, or California.
Duos,
Okay. White Stripes versus the Black Keys. Which one would you rather listen to right now?
White Stripes.
Mhm.
Wait, this is a quick rapid fire round, so I just answer
You can also give
quickly.
a short explanation if you want to.
Okay. Okay. I'll just say White Stripes. No offense to the Black Keys.
I'm thinking, I think for me it would be Black Keys just because I like
Okay.
the voice much more.
Okay.
Pinback versus Limbic System.
Oh, Pinback. I don't even
Mhm.
know who Limbic System is. So Pinback, I love Pinbacks and I'm friends with those guys. We play shows together all the time and I'm a fan. So no offense to Limbic System. I've never heard them, but Pinback's great.
Also a quirky post-rock duo, I would say. But
Okay.
going more into the math direction than you. Maybe similar to Yesness. There's
Okay.
probably a more kindred spirit to Yesness. Um,
Okay.
I'm not sure if you like the next one, but Daft Punk versus the Pet Shop Boys.
Oh, Daft Punk. I love Daft Punk. I got interested in Daft Punk really, really, really early,
Mhm.
like before they were popular, when they were kind of underground.
Mhm.
I still love them. And Pet Shop Boys have their moments, but I saw them live we played with them at a festival with that other band I told you about at the beginning of the interview, the
Mhm.
Soft Lights I was in. We were playing some festivals in Australia, and I went and saw them, and I walked away after two or three songs. It was like watching a Broadway musical. There's all these dancers and stuff,
Mhm.
and it did not it just rubbed me the wrong way. I thought, wow, this is not what I thought this was going to be. And sorry,
No
but
problem.
to stay on a positive note, I love Daft Punk.
Understandable. Definitely. Um, let's go to trios. And being a German, I couldn't help but choose four German bands. And I
Okay.
think there might be something that you like about both couples.
Okay.
Neu versus Tangerine Dream.
I think I got to go with Noi. I really like that band. Or whatever.
Mhm. Then my old hometown heroes, Can versus
Okay.
Faust.
I'm gonna go with Can because I don't know Faust.
No problem. They recorded like 15 kilometers from my home, so that's
Okay.
those are real hometown heroes. So then
Okay.
we go to the California stuff.
All right.
We go from oldest to newest. The
Okay.
Beach Boys versus the Eagles.
Oh, the Eagles. That's an easy one for me. I can't stand the Beach Boys. It's interesting to me that the Beach Boys were just so, for people my age, were just so hated. It was such awful, cheesy music. And then somewhere around the late 90s, early 2000s, they became super hip and super cool. And
Yeah.
Pet Sounds was everybody who was a cool hipster thought Pet Sounds was the greatest record of all time or pretended like they thought that. And I thought, what are you talking about? Now, there's some great playing on those records. I love, I'm a bass player. Karaoke is phenomenal. A lot of what was
The
going on there
stories
was
behind it
really,
are great.
really, really well crafted, but I do not like that music. The Eagles, this is not cool to say. I love their music. There's so much of it that for me is really good. And that's not a hip thing to say, but I don't
No,
care.
no,
I
no,
think
no,
they
no.
were great.
I wouldn't disagree with you. I can see why people like the Eagles. With the Beach Boys, I think there are some highly interesting stories behind Pet Sounds. I mean, like the fact that Brian Wilson was not able to sit, let alone stand, so they had to hang the piano from the ceiling towards him so that he could lie on the floor and play the thing. I mean, like that's shit that nobody can come up with because it would be so fucking unbelievable.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the 80s. Van Halen versus Journey. And I think you
Ooh.
should, and according to your discography, the answer should be clear.
Yeah, I know. Okay, I love both. I really well, for me, it was Journey up through Escape. After that, they lost me. It was too cheesy, or
With
they were
Escape
always
or
cheesy.
after?
But I was young. With Escape is one of my favorite records, just because I was a kid and I loved it at the time. Even though it's easy to talk about how cheesy it is. Van Halen were just they were cool at the time. They are cool now. Those old records, like they're just so funny and such phenomenal musicians. Except for the singer, but he was a great front man. I Oh gosh, that's really hard to. It's kind of a tie, but I think let's go ahead and say Van Halen.
You know where you can easily find the hardest Journey fans worldwide? Not in the US.
I have a feeling you're going to say Germany just because
No,
that's where you are.
no, the Philippines.
Oh, because they're new singers from there, right?
Yeah, because they love karaoke.
Right. That's where they found him, apparently.
Well, according to the story that I read, they found him somewhere doing shows in a Hong Kong bar. But Ariel Pineda's story is breathtaking. I mean, like the guy grew up in one of those worst slums of Manila,
Hmm.
and that's one of those slums where people live on a cemetery, as far as I remember.
Wow.
And to come from there and to make it that big, that is huge.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah, definitely. I have one more California one.
Okay.
Two bands that have been added for longer than one thing in one of the cases. One of them looks like Grandpa's band nowadays, and the other looks like our age. Metallica versus Green Day.
Oh, Metallica. Um, we were talking earlier about I think it was before we were recording. We were talking about seeing bands really, really earlier in their career, and I played with Green Day in the band I was in at the time when they had just gotten signed to Warner Brothers, I think. And we back then, getting a record deal was a huge, huge deal. And so these guys were signed to Warner Brothers. Couldn't believe it. I remember talking to the drummer, and he's like, "Look at this drum set. Warner Brothers bought me a drum set. It's incredible." And I remember watching them thinking, that's just kind of Social Distortion with better harmonies. Um, but I thought they were cool. But I definitely, at this late date, I would enjoy listening to Metallica way more than Green Day. Neither one are bands I would listen to very often, but definitely Metallica, I still think puts out good stuff. Whereas Green Day, I don't hear anything from them these days that does anything for me. No offense.
Well, they had that moment at the beginning of the millennium, right? When they definitely were highly influential,
Oh yeah, for sure.
that American Idiot record and the record afterwards, whose title I forgot at the moment. But the interesting thing is when you say, okay, they were just signed to a record deal, something that people forget at that time when they were signed to a record label, they had already been at it for nearly 10 years. They were playing shows in the mid 80s with Neurosis and other great Gilman bands. So
Yeah,
they
exactly.
are
Gilman Street
older than they
Warehouse.
seem, much
Yeah,
older.
especially because they still look young, like they've got good genes or whatever.
Yeah, I just saw them opening at the Super Bowl, and I was like, that's unfair that the guy he's older than me and looks younger than I do.
I know he's got this giant head of hair, and maybe he's kind of small. I can't remember or
He
something, but
is.
he just like
He is.
he's
He
fit.
is.
Yeah. So that makes him look younger too, I suppose. Good for him.
And I have one last one because we were talking about composers. And so I thought I would give you a composer and I would give you his probably most well-known soundtrack and one of his lesser-known soundtracks.
Okay.
The composer is Vangelis.
Okay.
The most famous Vangelis soundtrack, I would say, is Blade Runner.
Yep.
And one of his lesser-known ones is 1492. The
Gosh,
movie
I
about
haven't
the
seen.
Columbus.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, so I can't. I'm a Blade Runner nerd, so I love that soundtrack. So I mean, it's pretty easy for me to pick that without even having heard the 1492 one because I just
Yeah. You
Blade
probably
Runner's
would have chosen that
phenomenal.
even if you had known the other one.
Yeah, I probably would have. Yeah, but now you got me curious about 1492. I'm gonna have to track that down.
It's definitely not as big as Blade Runner. In Germany, it was big because it had a hit single that was the entrance music for a famous German boxer. But anyway,
Oh, okay.
Kristian,
Gotcha.
thanks for your time. Thanks for all the details, everybody.
Yeah,
When
thank
we
you.
start, when we publish this, April 5th, you have a few days. April 10th, they are going to release Nowhere Faster through Joyful Noise Records. Listen to it. Take your time and please use headphones. I think either you have a very, very good stereo, but if you don't, headphones is the way to go. Kristian, thanks for all your time. Your chance for final last words.
Oh, just thanks for doing this. This has been really fun. I like talking about myself for an hour, and I don't know it's 2 months from now. Who knows what'll be happening in the world? Hopefully, everything's great. Everybody's happy, and there's lots of peace and love and understanding.
I know one way to go there, but I'll tell you afterwards. So, everybody,
Okay.
thanks for this and tune in next week. So, Kristian, thanks for your time.
Thank you.